got to visit with Todd. Did I see correctly that he added solar to his house?
He did.
Thought I saw that.
He did. It's supposed to be up and going. I'll have to ask him how it works.
I think I saw a couple of days ago that they said they were up and going. So we've got Andy, we've got, okay. I guess, do we need to warn Stephen to, oh, yeah. Here comes Todd. Do we need to warn Stephen to start recording?
Looks like it's all ready to go, so whenever you are.
Todd's kind of in. It looks like, yeah, let's go ahead and get started then.
And Mike, we have one introduction we want to do at one point whenever you'd like.
Okay. Well, first off, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We have familiar faces, we have returning guests, and we have new guests. So I don't see, yeah, I think let's go ahead and start that right now. Let's just introduce everybody before we really get into the meeting part of it. So,
well, the main thing is, as we reported or told you last month, Jessica's a short timer for us. Her last day is going to be January 29th. And so since our last meeting, we did interviews and we've hired, her name's Nikki Wells, and she's there with Jessica. So do you want to just tell the board just a little bit about your background, Nikki?
Sure. So I have been down here about 10 years. I worked for the city 5 years ago in the utility office and spent the last 5 years working at a pharmacy and then decided to come back. Married, have 2 boys, have lots of years of experience. Excited to learn this and be back in the power department and with the city. So
great, thank you. She's going to be a great asset, but we're going to miss Jessica. But we're going to wish her well on her new adventure up north. So
thank you.
Will be her last meeting, and then next month, Nikki will take over the reins.
Okay, good. Yeah, I got the chance to visit a little bit with Jessica on what her plans are and everything going on. So it's exciting. She's got some exciting things going. So do we want to introduce Mike and Jake right now or wait till they're part or?
Well, you kind of met them last month. So.
Okay. And Jeremy actually stayed with us and is back again too. So we didn't scare him too bad. And I assume we don't have anybody in the council chambers. It looks empty.
Yeah, I went in just a little before 5 and there was nobody in there yet. So okay. I would doubt there will be, but.
Okay, well then let's kind of, again, thanks everyone for joining us and the start of this year and stuff. And let's go ahead and if we can, did everybody get the email? I assume you got the email with the link. Did you get copies of the minutes and agenda? Half of you just kind of went offline and turned it off.
Yep, I got it as well.
Okay. We do have one change on it. We need to table the minutes from October the 6th. So that will be a change on the agenda as we talk about approving that. I think everything else is correct. You're on mute, Jessica, if you were talking. Okay. Sorry, I'm just opening that chat box, so I've got you there. So we just need an approval of the agenda with that change of tabling the October 6th minutes.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to approve the agenda with that change.
I'll second that.
So we have Todd Spriggs is making the motion and Mark is seconding that. Andy, go ahead and start a vote.
Andy Palmer, aye.
Randy.
Randy Meyer, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. So, okay. And then, oh, did someone say something? And then the minutes. Were there any questions, any changes need to be made on the minutes? And these are the minutes for December the 1st. No changes? We paused long enough for everyone to kind of think about that. There's no changes. Motion for approval of the minutes.
I'll motion to approve.
Okay, Mark.
I'll second that motion.
Andy. So Mark motioned and Andy seconded that. Randy, do you want to start us?
Meyer, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Andy,
Palmer, aye.
Mark,
Hauser, aye.
and Dinsmore, aye. So, okay, that's all of that. So new business, on to the next thing. Strategic plan. Jake and Mike, you're on.
Before they get started, one quick thing is if you're, depending on your comfort level after their presentation, if you were comfortable to make that recommendation to move it on to the city council, then we'll proceed down that path. If you got questions, we can work through those and approve it in February or whatever you guys feel appropriate.
Okay.
All right. Well, like we said earlier, thanks for having us back. We really appreciate your patience as we work through this process. We're going to go easy on you today. Basically, what we wanted to present to you is what we sent out in PDF form. It's our strategic plan, our vision and mission statement in a more aesthetically pleasing form. It's what we would like to be what's posted on the website so people, the public, our customers can access and see what we've put together and what we're trying to do as a department to make sure we're working in the right direction. Did everybody get that and have a chance to maybe look through that, hopefully? Because today we basically just, like Rick said, we'd like to make sure you don't have any outstanding questions, anything you'd like to see changed on that. We really are open to your feedback and would welcome that. So if there's anything you'd like to see, please let us know. There was one change from the PDF form that we sent out. It was on slide 13. We just changed some wording because we felt like it didn't really make sense for what we were going for. Can we put that up on the screen?
Yeah, let's see.
And maybe just go through those slides and then they can interrupt you if they have any questions.
Absolutely. Yeah, let us just show you this change real quick and then we'll go back to the beginning.
I'm not allowed to share.
We don't have permission to share.
The change on it was it went from, it read, with the completion of the strategic plan, we now have a public plan about who we are, how we will act, and where we go. And we changed that to, we now have a plan that represents who we are, how we will act, and where we will go from here. So
Pretty basic change, but we felt like it made a little more sense in what we were trying to do.
It's the same presentation that you presented to us last time, isn't it?
Yes,
Correct.
the presentation itself, there were no changes to what we presented to you, just put in a different format, something we could actually share.
Steve, can you get them to where they can share their screen?
They have it now.
Okay, thanks.
The only thing I wondered, where we're presenting this to the city now, do we want to say strategic plan 2020 or 2021? I know it started in 2020, but
Yeah, that's a valid point. We may want to change that date since we passed the year mark.
well, and 2021 makes it sound like you're just starting it and we had no direction, whereas 2020 kind of gives it a year of process. So, I don't know if that's necessarily, I think that's something that if you guys feel that's.
Yeah, but 2020 really sucked. So let's just go to 2021.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't want to curse ourselves.
Yeah, I second that.
I think I prefer it to be 2021 also. I think that they'll realize we've been working on this for quite a while. You've been working on it for quite a while, and that we're just moving forward and starting fresh. And I think that makes sense.
Okay, we appreciate that. We'll make that change. I think we've almost got this. Are you seeing the plan?
We're seeing your screen, but it hasn't come up to the plan yet.
We're still on your Google Drive.
Okay.
There we go.
See it? All right. Okay. Well, with that being said, we'll just go through slide by slide. That's just what's in there. So our mission statement, anything there that's been presented a while ago, but is there anything you have questions or concerns on?
I thought it was comprehensive last time you went through it, and I think it's a great idea to make sure you got a vision statement of what you're trying to accomplish and what you're doing.
Okay.
And I think you hit the nail on the head with it.
Okay. And if you haven't, we'll go through, fairly quickly. And if you have anything, want to go back, let us know. So the format that we sent to you, we just tried to put it in a way that we can, anybody that looks at it can see where we're going. Got it numbered, and these are the same things like we said before we presented to you, just in this format. These are our values that guide us. And that's everything that will be, these 4 things are everything that will be presented to the public, to our customers.
One question.
Yes.
On, I can't tell which page, the resources page, page 9, people involved. Is the mayor officially considered city council, or does he need to be added as a bullet point on that?
That's a good question. I think he's part of the city council if it comes to a tie, but
that's the only thing I see there, is whether if he's part of the city council, or will people kind of wonder if he's part of that if he doesn't have his own bullet point?
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. We'll put him on all of the people involved.
all the slides.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is the slide that we were talking about. It's the only change, and unless you'd like us to change it back to what we sent you, we just didn't feel like the wording have a public plan. It's more, this is what we as a department are going to do. So we wanted to change that so it represented better what we're trying to get with the strategic plan.
I like that. I think that flows better.
Yeah. The only thing that I don't want to even say it, but from a public's view, I would say that probably their biggest priority for the power would be cost. And I know that you have it in your presentation and your plan that cost is important to you, but in most of the slides, nothing is mentioned about cost.
Yeah.
A lot of that, I mean, we do mention throughout here about education. We do mention about resources and everything like that. You guys know how the power department works because you're privy to how things run, and most of the public has no idea. most of the public, their idea of the power department is what comes in at the end of the month. So we are working on an education portion of this where they will, you know, have opportunities to be educated on where we are and why we're here and where we're going here in the future.
But your point is valid. I see what you're saying. You know, if someone from the public was to get on the website and say, oh, what's the strategic plan for the power department? And they look through, it's not really a highlight or anything. And like you said, it is one of the bigger talking points when it comes to the.
But it's in the
resources section.
The mission statement.
It's in the mission statement. Yeah.
And then it's mentioned in the desired end of the resources as well.
On that question, and this may just be a little bit, so it says in the desired end on that resources spot, wholesale resources, is that like limiting you to one option? The wholesale word.
And maybe we can expand that desired end, which more or less it translates to cost competitive rates or something.
Yeah, we can make that.
Does that make sense? I mean, it kind of translates through, since that's our single biggest cost is the resource.
Yeah, and I understand. I mean, and again, it's going to be someone else looking at it saying, and maybe they understand wholesale as being only one source. And I don't know, that's not as big of a deal. You guys look at that, and if that's correct, then leave it. If that does limit.
Randy, you brought up the cost. Where do you see it fitting in, or where could we improve fitting that in better?
I'd say just because costs are always the bottom line on most people's minds, just to have it kind of be an overtone of the whole program somehow, maybe with wording or with a greater emphasis on it, is what I was thinking. But
okay, let us take a look and see how we can maybe add a bullet point in the strategy part and desired ends of some of these.
How about in the vision statement, a leading power department of choice by employees and customers recognized for reliable, transparent, affordable, just adding the word affordable service.
Okay.
yeah, things like that. That's what I'm referring to. It's just like every bullet point doesn't talk about that issue, but I think for most people, that's the most important issue.
And I totally see where you're coming from, you know, and we want the plan to stay a very comprehensive, you know, because there's obviously more to it. We know from the inside that we have to do to make it work, but from a public standpoint, that's going to be a big thing that they look at.
Yeah.
And if they're in the meetings, I mean, I know Rick is always, I mean, that's always our topic, is this is the cost effective, you know, we're always doing that. So it just kind of reinforces that yes, we do watch that and look at that and try to base decisions on that.
Yeah, sure. And you know, as you know, this is just one part of this project. And so there's going to be things that we're working on right now, like informing the public. We want to be at Washington City Night to share that information, you know, what we're doing to try to keep those rates down. And as we come up with our history, you know, talk a little bit about why we're where we're at today and where we're trying to go. So we are trying to implement that into the program in other areas as well. But like Rick said, you know, we definitely will take a look at it and see if there's anything we can do to add that as a highlight for this presentation.
Perfect.
So maybe let us chew on that just a little bit, and then we can do the new and improved version at next month's meeting, and then get your blessing on that to move it on to the council.
Okay.
That sounds good. And I think if each one of us probably could review this again and then just send any additional emails or whatever to Rick. So we don't have to make changes again next time. So if we have any other comments or whatever, we'll shoot you an email. But I will review it again too. Yeah, I think it's put together really well. And for the most part, I think it looks really good.
Great.
Yeah, we appreciate the effort, guys, really.
And nice work, guys.
Okay, I think that's it unless you have any more questions, but I think that's a great way to do it. Give us some feedback through email and let us know. And we'll send you an updated PDF with that minor change that we made on slide 13.
And the next Power Board meeting is going to be on the 2nd of February. So if we had it maybe somewhere around the 22nd, any comments, then we could get them incorporated that week before we send out the next agenda.
Okay.
Sounds good. Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your efforts and work in this. I think you guys really, I mean, you've covered a lot of points that we didn't ever think about and stuff in this. Sorry, I'm still looking through page of that stuff. So, okay. Rick, capital facilities plan.
Okay, Steve, hopefully I can.
I guess Mike and Jake, I don't know if you're, if you want to get out of here, get back to
I
family.
will sneak out. I have another meeting tonight, so I'm going to head out. I don't know if Mike's going to stick around, but
as much as I like to stay, I have to leave. So
thank you for joining us.
Thanks again.
Thanks guys.
Happy New Year, guys.
You too.
At least they're polite about it.
Trying to find the right. Oh no, it's this one. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, good.
Yes,
good.
we can.
This one will still have the similar date issue. This one I'd probably recommend leaving it at 2020 just because of how it's formatted and whatnot. But with COVID, city manager change, lots of different things going on, this kind of got a little bit on the back burner to get the approval process going. So that's why it's surprisingly dated 9 months ago. So, and I believe I've shared previously, I apologize to Randy, or no, excuse me, to Mark and Andy. I don't know at what point, remember exactly where you guys came in and where we had shared some of the tables from this plan. Does it look familiar, the planning idea at all? Do you remember?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I haven't seen it either.
Okay. So it's a fairly long document. If you need something to fall asleep at night, you know, break it out. It's kind of engineering oriented, but what the intent of the capital facility
On a video call.
Okay, well, I'm about to leave. I love you.
is
Dogs in
to,
there.
Yep.
the intent of the plan is to kind of give us a roadmap, particularly since we're in such a high growth area, that we can identify facilities before we need them and get them online. Just for example, we're going to be doing, as part of this year's budget, a fiber optic project from our Main Street sub to Buena Vista sub. The fiber optic wire has a 32-week lead time. and they're actually 4 weeks behind on that. So it'll be 9 to 10 months before, you know, some of these materials can get in. A substation transformer can take up to a year at times to get. So we have to be ahead of the curve. And so this helps give us a good roadmap of what to expect. It helps in budgeting, as you'll see. So I'm definitely not going to read the text. I'm going to hit some of the highlights, and maybe we can have kind of the same approach on this. If you can review it. I did notice some of the tables on the PDF I sent out were a little funky for some reason. I'll send out this one so you can read those maps at the back is where they had some issues. I'm not sure what happened when I created them. So again,
this was in the email.
Correct. There's some of the maps in the back, some of the notes you'll see you can't read.
Oh, okay.
Because of the font, or I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I got it corrected. And that I noticed it when I got this screen up ready for tonight, and it was like, ew, we won't be able to read that. So I'll send it out, but that's going to be the only difference is the maps will be able to be readable, the notes on the side. And then this also gives us a foundation for the plan that's called the Impact Fee Facilities Plan, which is kind of a subset of this. And so this is the foundation document that the rest of that's based on, that we'll be presenting in the next probably 2 to 3 months, the impact fee and the rate study. So again, look at this as a 5 to 10 year roadmap for the department going forward. And what we had, ICPE, it was prepared by ICPE. They're a consulting engineering firm that's done work for the city since the city bought the system 30 years ago. And so what they do is we give them a lot of information, our maps, information about the circuits, the conductor size, and they put it in a computer model and are able to model the circuits to a real high degree of accuracy. It's one of those things, the more detail you put in the model, the better the results. And so that's this design-based software here in the middle of the screen, what they use to model it. And there's lots of different softwares that do that. Our service territory, as you're well aware, is basically from the Virgin River north. We're bounded on the east or west by St. George, on the east by Hurricane, and on the north by the tortoises in the habitat. And so that kind of fixes our boundary. And based on their study, in the next approximately 10 years, the potential of up to 22 to 23 megawatts. So it'd be like about a 50% load increase potentially in the next 10 years, depending on how development occurs. I might report or mention that our Drew Ellerman over our planning department reported yesterday at our staff meeting that December was the highest. It was a record permit month that the city has ever had, and December typically isn't a high permit month. So COVID certainly hasn't slowed growth down in Washington. The top paragraph there is of note, the 9.2 megawatts, and I'll talk a little bit more about how these numbers were developed. Again, to give you a perspective, our peak load is about 45 megawatts last year. This time of year, we're about 15 to 16 at our highest during the day. And so this 9.2 would represent during a peak time in the Sitla areas, which is primarily the area that's north of the new parkway, on the south side of that area up to the habitat up by the water tanks up there on the far side of the city. They also look at what ifs, you know, if we lose a transformer, can we back up a service from adjacent substations and things like that? And that helps identify weaknesses in the system. They model it with the current load, and then we project out the 5-year loads, and then they put those on the system, and then that shows where weaknesses are that we need to address, and that's how they develop the plan. On the transmission side, this kind of summarizes that we have 3 main delivery points. We actively use 2 of them, and the third one over by Walmart, just barely east of Walmart, is a backup. It's normally open, but the other 2 we have coming from Mill Creek, we have about 2/3 of our load, and coming from Purgatory, we have about 1/3 of our load. And that's our normal configuration. So we'll get into the load forecast. And so this gives us what from the 1987 to current. You can see we've grown a little bit since 3.5 megawatts to, again, our 2020 peak was 45.5 basically. So some years are really high. There's a few years here and there that it drops a little, but we've had an amazing steady growth over that period of time. And then this is just that same data graphically. The red line is the summer peak, and the blue that you can see there is our winter peak, which is typically in December or January. And stop me if you got any questions. And then this just extends that table out and kind of projects out for the next 10 years. The time, again, that when this study was done, 2019 was the most recent. You'll notice they predicted our 2020 peak would be just under 43. We hit 45.5, so we're a little ahead of that. But again, 2020 was a bit of an unusual year with the heat. We had an extended period. So I would suspect, and we'll keep an eye on this, that the 2021 estimate there of just under 27 or 47 should be pretty realistic if we have a typical summer. And we'll get into a little more detail on how they arrived at all these future numbers. It was more than just, it wasn't a straight line percentage or anything like that. We actually looked at specific developments. Again, this is the same, just projected graphically. And the next 5 years are pretty steep, and then we showed it tapering off. And I suspect as we are limited in space, that area north in the Sitla land that I talked about is the last large area of land that are in our service territory. And we've already seen some preliminary development plans for that area. So I suspect that'll start. I think it fits very well in that 5-year time frame. I'm not sure exactly what their build out projection is, but it's probably in the 5 to 10 years from now is when they hope to be build out on that. And I don't know if Jeremy, if you know of any more on that development. I haven't had a lot of specifics on that, what their build out timing is or hopes.
It's a quite large development. I think it's more than 5 years. I would say it's probably 10-year horizon, but a lot of the main components will be built in the first 5 years.
Okay, thank you, because I wasn't able to attend that other meeting. So, and so this table represents on the left is each of our substations, and then the circuit numbers. We just use numbers to identify them. And this is where they start projecting and putting the new load on the existing system. And then the red shows areas that are approaching capacity levels that we might be concerned. And as you note there, it's no surprise that the Sienna Hills area is where our current real big boom of growth is. You just have to drive up that way in the Parkway and Telegraph area, and you can see. And so they take that projected load and then start adding projects and improvements to the system. And that's what these are labeled down here, approximate years or what they are. And then as you can see, if we do those kind of things, we should be able to support that load level without any red showing up, basically. And so this gives you, again, kind of the roadmap. We need to monitor it year by year. You know, if growth happens faster, it would accelerate these projects. If it happens slower, obviously we can delay some of those projects. So don't get too fixed on the years. It's based on more on load and where it occurs. And then this is kind of the heart of where they came up with the projected loads and the number of units. And this was based on some information we had from SITLA at the time. We need to, again, compare this with that new development that's being proposed. I don't think the numbers are horribly different. And so they took these and placed these on based on known developments or planned developments or subdivisions and things like that on what circuit they would currently land on, and then kind of projected the total load in the third column over, and then broke that out into expected years on when that's coming in. So you can see the SITLA, most of that load at that time we had projected starting in 2024. Some of that may accelerate, maybe in the 22 timeframe, depending on what their plans are. So that's how the loads were developed. It wasn't necessarily a percentage other than the future years. We did use some more straight line. You know, like the Spring Hill Suites, the Ovation, the La Vida, the Ovation Assisted Living, Coyote Creek, Best Western. Those are all buildings that are either now currently online or that are well out of the ground, and probably by this summer, the vast majority of those will be online. So like the Red Rock Apartments, it certainly will be built out and occupied by 2021. And that's where these basically a little over a megawatt's predicted. So does that make sense of how we took all of our known projects and applied loads to those, and then tried to do our best guesstimate of what year that load would start to hit. And the Trailhead Apartments, they're starting to break ground on that. And again, so the 21, 22 timeframe seems about right for those as well. Any questions? Let me shrink this back down a little. And so what they did from there is they took these improvements here that were kind of marked with rough bars or grayed out areas of when they would come on. And this next section shows what the project is, approximate time frame, and give an estimated cost for our budgeting. And so these first two projects, the 100 South Feeder and the Circuit 601 extension, they're both complete and done and online. And that's one of the reasons for keeping the dates where they were, is because some of these have already been completed. And so this becomes a longer list and menu of budget items that would be coming up, and what the intent of that proposal is, or project, what it will do. You know, a lot of these we transfer load between different substations so we can maximize the capacity that we have. A lot of times we have substation capacity, but we don't have the distribution ties to move that around properly. And I doubt there's any burning questions on any specific project. Again, you guys can look through this and provide some feedback. This Kings Road rebuild, we're well into the first phase of that. as we speak. That's one of our aging infrastructure projects that trying to improve the reliability for our customers. And where this refers to the Sitla area, that's that area north of the new Parkway Road. And as I mentioned before, they put these different load levels on the system and take different elements out of service. So for example, this would be our current loading, and if this transformer fails, Main Street T1, this is what you would do to move the load to adjacent transformers and circuits and keep all the customers still in service. So we have to plan for those type of things to happen. You certainly hope that they don't. Right now, this Coral Canyon is probably our worst case. If we were to lose the transformer at Coral Canyon, that would be our current worst case scenario. We can still back it up, but it puts that backup circuit near its capacity. As development grows up through the Sienna Hills area and up on top of the ridge, we'll be able to create a second tie in there that will improve that situation. So that's being addressed little by little as development occurs in that area. And so that's what this next section is. It kind of gives us a roadmap and makes sure we can back up when we have problems on the system. And this is just more information for us. It just kind of documents our transformers and regulators, our substation equipment, and the capacities that they have. Probably not too exciting for most people, but it's important to have documented. And these are the maps I was talking about. And if you look at your PDF, the keyed notes over here on the side, you pretty much can't read. The map itself comes up, but the text for some reason kind of blew up. And so what this does is it gives, these are the same projects that were mentioned before, and then just physically places them on the map where that's going to occur. And so those 17 are the same projects as previously described in text. It just shows you. And then this becomes more of the future circuits of the areas that would be served by the different circuit numbers and some of those projects that allow that to happen. And then you pay attention down on the bottom right, and then it moves to the 2025-29 timeframe and the projects associated with that. And again, you can kind of see the project's locations follow where the large growth occurs. Not too surprising there. And then there's a cost estimate for each project as well, which helps us out in budgeting a whole lot. So, and I think that's the main sections of the study. And again, I think if you read the text part, it's not as bad as the overall document. It's only 10 or 15 pages is most of the text. But again, just showing you the detail they go into. And if you want the 100 and some page version, I can send that. But this is an actual, this is their base case of the current system, the computer model of it. And you can actually zoom in and see what the voltage predictions are. And there's one of these cases for every one of those outage contingencies and all the data. And so like say there's another 50, 60 pages, but I didn't think you'd want to get in that detail. So any questions on at least what the intent of the study is or findings? And again, kind of maybe the same thing, review it. If you got questions, email me, and then we can maybe move this to a recommendation to the council at next meeting.
Rick, is this the same group that presented in the convention a couple years ago that did this study? It was a lady that presented.
I think you're thinking of the one that did the rate study, UFS, the one up in Jack.
Yeah, who did this one? Who did this?
This was by Intermountain Consumer Professional Engineers out of Midvale. I actually worked for them 2 different stints for about 20 years. So that's where a lot of my original experience came from, the consulting world. And so they did the system plan, and then UFS did our impact fee and rate study. They used this as the basis for a lot of the financial side of those other studies. So they kind of work together. Does that help?
Yeah. Has that plan been done? I know that they were working on doing a proposal for us. Has that been done? The rate study?
Yes. They're basically both from their side of things. They're in a kind of final draft to us. That's why I wanted to get this now that Jeremy's on board, get this in front of everybody, and then that'll be the next step to present those other 2 studies, the impact fee and the rate study.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I can give you a real tidbit on both of those. On the rate study, right now they're not recommending any rate changes, so that's good. On the impact fee, they are currently recommending about a $200 increase to the impact fees for a typical residential. So, and the last impact fee study was done in 2013, so it's been a while. So again, this kind of forms the basis of some of those, and they've used this information on what they've done. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
So the UFS studies will be coming probably February, March, and we'll start introducing those and going through that process. Because the impact fee study is a fairly lengthy process because we have to do public notices, public meetings, and there's a lot of requirements with that to get through that. Again, the rate study part should be fairly easy because they're not recommending any changes. So that one will be, I suspect, less controversial than the impact fee. Okay. If there's no more questions on that, again, I'll update that PDF and get it out to everyone so you can see those tables. Again, the text and stuff doesn't change. It's just I noticed the fonts kind of blew up on that PDF for some reason that I had sent out. So.
Any other questions or anything? Okay. On to the regular business, operations and generation updates.
Okay, I'll try to keep it fairly quick. And as far as I've kind of been giving you an update on our COVID status so far. So far, we haven't had any employees of the department with COVID. However, we've had a couple that their family members have. So we've had some that have had to quarantine for a week or so while their kid or spouse or people that they're living with kind of get over it after their last exposure. But fortunately, so far, knock on wood, we've fared pretty well in that department. And again, we do our best to try to keep our separation and masks, and particularly where we're indoors and in closer proximity. Sometimes it, again, is a challenge that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And before long, we're going to get back to normal one way or the other, right? As far as the generation, again, and unless there's a system emergency, we don't plan on any runs there. However, Mike and Jake are working on some maintenance items to get ready for the next run season. In fact, today they installed a water filter system that hopefully will help with some of the corrosion that we get in our swamp coolers. With the hard water we have here, they tend to plug up the pads pretty fast, and the pads in those big coolers are expensive. So Hurricanes had some really good luck with this system and feel like it's made a lot of improvement with their swamp coolers, and so we've elected to install those. And it was relatively cheap. I think it was about $1,300 to put in, so it really wasn't too expensive. And if it does what everything says it will, it'll pay for itself very quickly. As far as projects, those of you with the interest on 100 South, we have made some progress there. The poles up to, I think, is it Second West, that we've basically all the poles that TDS has transferred off of, we have pulled. We actually worked with them last week on help fish their wire through some of our guy wires. They were there the end of last week, but I didn't see them today when I came in. So hopefully the last 4 or 5 poles, they'll get done here pretty quick. I asked him if he was going to be on it until he's done. He said he was. But then at least the time I was in the area, I don't know, Todd might be able to address that better. It's right in front of his house.
Someone was out there yesterday. I don't know about today, but yeah, I saw them out there yesterday. So that's good. Good to see that.
So I'm hoping within the next week or so, they'll be off of the old poles onto the new, and then we can get those old ones pulled out and wrap that project up. That's all that's left on that. I mentioned before Kings Row. It's kind of a slow go in there with all the trees. They got some really big mulberries, and that can be a real challenge. But so far, the missile that we've shown in previous meetings has been doing really well. Occasionally, it gets kind of missiles itself into a root, and they have to dig it up and pull it out. But I think it's really saved on restoration work that we would have had to do otherwise if we would have open trenched it. So the other one is, I'll just do some highlights from Wayne's monthly report. Our safety meetings this week were focused, or this last month, were focused on our pole top rescue and bucket rescue. They have to certify that at least once a year. And so they get together and practice. If something were to happen, they have to be able to get somebody down the pole, either in a bucket or from their hooks. Tyler and Wayne participate in the Intermountain Power Superintendents Association. They had meetings in Santa Clara in December, and they attended those. And if we're able to do the training that IPSA normally puts on, Tyler will be one of the ones help making presentations on that. Depending on what COVID does, that may or may not happen. You probably noticed the tree trimmers, or B.A. Robinson, has started our annual tree trimming. They're probably about a third to halfway through the tree trim for this year. They do us a great job, and it's worked really well. And I think the property owners appreciate having an arborist do the trimming that's there, and knows that they'll take care of the trees no matter what we do. Sometimes you can't make them look real great when you have to keep those clearances. So, but that's ongoing. Jessica's been working real hard on keeping and the shop clean, and she's working hard to transition it to Nikki in as good a shape as possible, and we appreciate that. I think it was in late October, we did our inspections on all of our trucks have to be inspected annually. They test it for electric or dielectric strength, and then they go through and give us a list of repairs. We're almost done with getting all those complete on our fleet of bucket trucks and line trucks. We energized another building at Red Rock, so that's another 32 apartments, I believe it is. And you probably noticed that the Christmas decorations were taken down yesterday, so that went well. And Jake's been working on, he continues to work on the SCADA, making improvements there. And then Mike, on an ongoing basis, updates and adds data to our GIS system. So, and we really only had, knock on wood again, one outage in December with 4 customers. So it was a pretty quiet month, and that's the way we like that, is when our guys are on call, that they're just home and not out chasing down problems. So any questions you guys have had from neighbors, customers that we need to be aware of? Okay, so that's all the normal. Do you want to go into UAMPS, Mike, or?
Yep, go ahead and go right on into UAMPS then.
Was anyone able to attend the annual meeting, the Zoom meeting at all? Okay. It was a good meeting. One of the highlights was Representative Chris Stewart made a presentation, and he did comment that he was, very supportive of UAMPS, and in particular the CFPP project. And he did comment, which UAMPS is in general keeping an eye on, is with the new administration, I think everybody expects some form of climate change at the federal level, legislation to at least be put forth. How far it gets may depend on the Georgia election that's wrapping up as we speak, and how successful some of that will be. So the other item I noted from those meetings that was interesting, and in the West Interconnect, they predict 18,000 megawatts of generation will need to be replaced in the next 10 years. And that's, again, it shows some of the importance of the CFPP and some of the other projects that we have going on. I'll just go through the different UAMPS projects. On the Central St. George project, which is the Washington County transmission one, really not any significant changes there. They're still working, Rocky Mountain is, on getting the relays settings in place that we need for the upcoming summer. Dixie, I know, is still working on their reconductor project. However, their normal feeds are back to where they usually are. They're not being currently fed through the UAMPS and St. George systems. So that's good. It just limits our exposure a little bit when we get back to normal. We are starting the pre-summer study process with Rocky Mountain Dixie and the rest of the utilities in the area. There's a meeting scheduled later this month to start that study process. So again, they always run studies before we go into summer, same kind of things that was presented, just on a bigger scale, to make sure we know if this line goes out, how we can refeed the loads in the area. The Payson project is running well. They did form an ad hoc committee to kind of evaluate some of the startup costs and chemical costs. They asked me to participate in that, so I'll be participating in that. And hopefully, again, the goal is just to keep the costs down as much as we can on that project. The Vail heat recovery project last month ran really well. The capacity factor was over 90%. And in fact, when it gets cool like this and the gas compressors are running hard and they have a lot of waste heat, we actually get, we have like 980 some kilowatts out of that project, and we actually get over 1,000 when they're able to push it a little bit harder when they have that extra heat. And then the cooling at this time of year, they can extend that out just a little bit. So that's been helpful. There are a couple projects, or as far as firm power supply, we did sign the 5-year contract. I think we talked about that last month. And the steel solar contract has been signed that will start late next year. We're looking into a couple resource projects. There's a solar project in New Mexico. The one intriguing thing about that one, it does have a battery storage component to it. Of course, it comes with a cost, so we're looking into that. But that would extend the solar output profile a little bit if we can utilize the battery. There's a project called Muddy Creek, which is kind of a cousin to the Vail. It's a similar heat recovery on a gas line compressor station. It's a project that they looked at a few years ago, and now they're kind of dusting things off and see if it makes sense to move forward with that. And that's actually one of the Vail project is our most consistent green type project or renewable type project that we have. And so that one I would be, I think, very interested in. Our pull prices last month were really good at about $29.50, $29.50 a megawatt hour. And we'll be looking at, UAMPS has started to look at a summer product for this year, kind of like we've done the last 4 or 5 years. Our wind projects, of course, when our loads are down, our wind's the highest. But they actually had some pretty good months. Horse Butte had over a 44% capacity factor. It's typically in the low 30s to upper 20s, so it was had a good month. And Pleasant Valley was also up a few percent for what it typically does. And then probably the last project I want to report on is the carbon-free power project. I think you've seen I've been copied on some of the emails or news releases, but the original project was 12 units at 60 megawatts each. And we're looking at, in order to help keep costs down and reduce the subscription, either a 6 or an 8 module plant that has a higher output per module. The price target will remain the same as the 55, and they're working on updating the estimates to the 6. They call it the 6 and the 8-pack version, and that work should be in March, and then they'll do an economic competitive test in March. And so we'll should have some really good data in March as far as those final configurations. Like I expressed in our meeting last week to the board, I said to a large degree, I don't care if it's a single module or 20 modules, as long as we get the price and meet our timing, that's we've been working towards. So they're working on that. We did sign the development cost approve the development cost reimbursement agreement, and the EPC, or the engineering procurement and construction development agreements, were approved last week in an interim meeting. And so the first 2 task orders on those are moving forward. And most of that relates to the cost estimates and the economic competitive tests that will be done in March. So UAMPS is also focused on obviously getting more subscription. They've developed a letter of intent format, and they reported at the meetings in December that they were hoping to have 5 or 6 utilities that would sign up, or at least sign the letter of intent, which would show a good faith effort to look into the project seriously. So I'm hopeful that they can make progress on that front. That again remains the single biggest challenge, is we got to have that subscription in order to make it go. And that's the reason for the smaller plant configurations. We'd have a smaller subscription total that we'd have to get. So that's my UAMPS report, and kind of the end of the report overall, unless you have questions for me.
Thank you, Rick. That was great.
Yeah, no questions here.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if there's no questions, Rick, I guess as we look at this year, what are some things that we're going to be looking at and working on this year, working towards?
I think the big ones are going to be what we've just started with here on the capital facilities plan, the impact fee, and the rate studies. And I hope to be able to get to our pole attachment agreements with TDS and CenturyLink. Right now, the city doesn't have an official agreement or document that we can go to and say, you have so many days to move from the old poles to the new poles, which creates a challenge. And that's some of the language I want to get put together in agreement. I know St. George recently completed one. And so that's another goal that I hope to be working on, to where I can bring that to you. But those are the main things. And then I think the resources are an ongoing challenge. And as those come up, to make sure we're meeting our needs. And again, our load profile is just a challenge with this time of year. We're during the peak for today, December, January is 15, 16 megawatts. And then we've got the 3 months that are 30 and 40 megawatts. And that makes it a challenge to find resources that fit that. And so we've addressed that somewhat with the new 5-year product. We've got it shaped a little better than what our current 5-year one is. But we're on that current one through this summer, and then the new one starts next year.
Okay.
And then the strategic plan part of things, we've got some things planned there as far as maybe doing a customer survey and some of those things that would be coming up.
Okay.
Some things that you think that we need to address. I mean, I'm open to suggestions and areas we need to focus on.
I don't know if I have anything in particular. I mean, I think, like Randy said, the concern with everybody seems to be keeping the costs down, which I know we're constantly trying to work on and do, but I guess if anything, we just need to educate the public that that's what's really happening behind the scenes. So,
Right. And those are a couple of the components between the survey and the customer education side of things that we'd like to get out to people so they can understand better. You know, I know there's always the perception that, you know, we need to get to Dixie's rates. That's just not going to happen. You know, it's just with the resources we have available, that's just not possible, but we certainly are keeping our rates competitive with adjoining utilities. That doesn't mean you're the cheapest, but you can still be competitive.
so agreed. Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? When are we going to make Todd do his PowerPoint on his solar?
Yeah, maybe next month he can tell us.
We have to give him 2 or 3 months of bills to come in, and then he can.
Yeah, I got to see how it plays out. My son talked me into it, so we'll see how that goes.
At least you got somebody to blame.
That's exactly right. That's why you have kids.
Yep.
Okay, if that is it, our next meeting is, when was it? February?
February 2nd.
Well, that's Groundhog Day. We're not doing that over and over and over and over.
We'll just do it once. That'll be what, 4 weeks out.
Okay. Well, if we can have a motion to adjourn.
I'll go ahead and motion to adjourn.
I'll
I
second
beat
that.
you to it, Randy.
Okay,
You
so we
did.
got Todd motion, Randy second. Mark, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Hauser, aye.
Andy,
Palmer, aye.
Todd,
Spriggs, aye.
Randy,
Meyer, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kurt, for joining us late. Glad you made it.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you guys.
And
See you later.
Everybody have a good month. Happy New Year.
Thanks,
Happy New
Rick.
Year.
Jessica, if we don't see you, thank you so much for everything you've done for us. I know
Yeah, thanks,
Andy and
Jessica.
Mark and you, you've been here the entire time I've been here, so
Yep.
I
You're on
know
your
you've
own.
done a lot. And Nikki, we look excited. We look forward, and good luck on learning everything before Jessica.
Thank you. Well, it was really great working with all of you guys.
You too. Best of luck and come back and visit.
Thank you, and I definitely will.
oh, she's got to give us an invitation to her wedding, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
We're going to be the wedding crashers.
I love it.
There you go.
I definitely need a wedding crasher.
We'll be the one with the power.